All right, it's that time of the year again, and it's a bit late. The Super Bowl was a few weeks ago now. But I'm gonna do the top five most surprising teams of the 2024 NFL season. The five teams that I picked exceeded expectations. This is not the general opinion. This is my opinion. This is like the five teams that did way better than I thought they would do. So let's get started. So at number five, I have the Seattle Seahawks. Now, yes, did the Seahawks miss the playoffs? Yes, but when I was trying to get this list together, I realized, there there wasn't a lot of teams that like overachieved. The majority of the NFL teams either did what they were expected to do or did worse. So I had to pick the Seahawks just because I didn't really know what to expect with Seattle and their first season with Mike McDonald. I've honestly thought, and I kind of still think the Geno Smith and Linsanity run is starting to run out. I don't think I think if Seattle wants to be a true contender, I think they got to get somebody else other than Geno Smith. But so far he's been serviceable. I mean, Geno Smith has been way better than people expected him to do. But the Seahawks went 10-7. They barely missed the playoffs. I think they were the eight. I think they were eight seed. They barely missed, and that's all I really have to say about Seattle. The only reason why I have them on this list is because weren't a lot of teams that I could put ahead of them. There was only four teams I could put ahead of Seattle, and Seattle, I thought they would have a losing record with their first season with their new head coach, but they didn't. They went 10-7 and barely missed. So that's why I have them at number five. But let's move on to number four. Up next, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers went 5-12 in 2023, and now I really was debating putting the Chargers on this list because I expected the Chargers to be a good team again with Jim Harbaugh, and that's exactly what they were. They went 11-6. Honestly, thought they would have beat the Texans in the wild card, but they didn't. Doesn't help when Justin Herbert throws four interceptions, but the Chargers still did better. I thought they would be back. I didn't know if the Chargers would make up the playoffs, but they did. Honestly, probably should have won that game, but they didn't. You know how that goes. Just as long as you have Justin Herbert, the Chargers have been great. But Justin Herbert has been the most what if quarterback in the NFL. Everybody's like, "Yo, dude? What if he has these guys? What if he got this?" And then he gets these guys and does this, and does nothing happens. I don't think Justin Herbert has won a playoff game. He's played in two playoff games. Yeah, in 2022 they blew that 27-0 lead against Jacksonville. And then this year they were expected to beat the Texans and they got blown out. So, but yeah, I think the Chargers will be a great team with Jim Harbaugh, and I think they will be back in the playoffs next season. All right, up next, at number 3, I have the Denver Broncos. The Broncos. I mean, who expected them to make the playoffs with a rookie quarterback? So the Denver Broncos, they made the playoffs in 2024. This was their first playoff appearance since they won Super Bowl 50 with Peyton Manning back in 2015. So yeah, this is their first playoff appearance in 9 years. Um, did they get blown out by Buffalo in the wild card? Yeah, they did, but I didn't think the Broncos. I thought honestly, I picked the Broncos to finish last place in the AFC West. I thought the Raiders would have been better than the Broncos. I just thought the Broncos were just not a great team, despite the fact they do have Sean Payton as their head coach. But man, Sean Payton proved me wrong this year. He made the playoffs. Bo Nix actually looked pretty good. Was the second best rookie quarterback in the NFL this season. I think Bo Nix will be a great quarterback for the Broncos. Hope maybe if the Broncos win a playoff game, maybe Bo Nix can be the second quarterback in Denver history that the Broncos drafted to win a playoff game. The first was Tim Tebow, because the Broncos did not draft John Elway and Peyton Manning. So there you go. But yeah, the Broncos went 10-7, made the playoffs. I thought they were not going to be a good team. I thought they would have been like a 5-12 team. I just didn't really know how I felt about Bo Nix. It's hard to make an assumption about rookie quarterbacks because you just don't know how good they're going to be. Bo Nix looks like he's going to be pretty good. So we'll see how it goes with that. All right, up next at number 2, I have. Whoops, I dropped the helmet. I have the Minnesota Vikings. Yes, going after the regular season, I said the Vikings were the number 1 most surprising team, but the team that I have at number 1 just had a better performance in the playoffs, so I put them at number 1. But yeah, the Vikings had an the Vikings had an absolutely abysmal offseason. They lost so many players. They had dealt with so many injuries during training camp, especially with their rookie quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, that had suffered a torn meniscus during preseason. Well, I don't think he suffered it on the field, but discovered during preseason he had a torn meniscus, had surgery, which put him out for the entire season. And they had to deal with Sam Darnold at quarterback. Now, if you looked at the past, Sam Darnold had not been good. Sam Darnold was considered a draft bust. He was the 3rd overall pick of 2018 out of USC when the Jets selected him, and he was not great. And went to Carolina, did not play good. Went to San Francisco, did not play great. And now here he is at the Vikings. And people thought, wow, the Vikings are going to be terrible this year. They don't have anybody at quarterback. Don't expect the Vikings to be anything. And they went 14-3. Despite the fact they won 14 games, they've still finished second place because the Lions went 15-2. The Vikings, they lost 3 games. They lost 2 against Detroit, and they lost 1 against the Rams. And then they went 1 and done the playoffs, but I think some people weren't surprised by the Rams beating the Vikings in the wild card. Sam Darnold, I mean, honestly, the team played great around Sam Darnold, and I mean, if you have Justin Jefferson on your team, I mean, it doesn't have to be a perfect throw. You just throw it towards the area he's in, he'll make the catch. Justin Jefferson is probably the best wide receiver in the NFL. I would say Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL. But it started to get to the point where it looked like the Vikings were winning games, but it looked like they were barely scraping by. I mean, you look at let's just compare the Lions and the Vikings for a second. They both were 14-2 going into that final game. Let's compare. They both played Jacksonville. When the Lions played them, they beat them 52-6. But when the Vikings played them, they beat them 12-7. The Jaguars were not a good team. A lot of teams that the Lions were blowing out, the Vikings were barely scraping by. And that's how I thought, I don't know how I feel about the Vikings. And they just kept winning. They just kept winning. But then the playoffs, their insane run ran out. They got embarrassed on the road in Detroit, which ended up losing the division. And then they got embarrassed in the wild card against the Rams. But still, amazing season for the Vikings. I mean, if we went back to August 2024, if I told you, hey, the Vikings are going 14-3 this year, you'd be like, you're crazy. There's no way they're going to win the division because you would have thought if they went 14-3, they would have won the division. Well, Lions went 15-2. All right. Without further ado, in my opinion, the number 1 most surprising team in the NFL in 2023, and you probably already guessed who it is the Washington Commanders. The Commanders went 4-13 in 2023 with Ron. They fired head coach Ron Rivera, and then they bring in Dan Quinn. A lot of people did not like the Dan Quinn hire. They were like, man, he had some good seasons in Atlanta before falling apart. I don't know why the Commanders thought it was a good idea to hire him. They had a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels from LSU, the 2023 Heisman Trophy winner. And man, Jaden Daniels went insane this season. They went 12-5. Of course, they had to beat the Bears on a Hail Mary to be 12-5, but still, they went 12-5. In the playoffs, they make it all the way to the NFC Championship game with their first year with Dan Quinn and with a rookie quarterback. That is insane. we were close to having a rookie quarterback in the Super Bowl for the first time ever, but Philly had other plans, and but I think the most surprising part about the Commanders was that Lions game, the divisional round. If you're a Lions fan watching this video, sorry I'm bringing it up again, but if as you know, the Lions had the 1 seed in the NFC. They hosted the Washington Commanders in the divisional round, and the Lions got embarrassed. The Commanders put up 45 points on them, 38 offensive points. They did have a pick six. And the Commanders went on the road and beat the 1 seed, and with the rookie quarterback. That's just something that usually doesn't happen. And it did but then their insane run ran out where they got absolutely demolished by the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, and then the Eagles ended up winning the Super Bowl. But there you go. That is my list. That is the top 5 most surprising teams. In a little bit, I will be uploading the top 5 most disappointing teams. Stay tuned for that.